The small town of Cedar Ridge, Texas was known for its tight-knit community and charming houses, but there was one house that stood out among the rest. At the end of Maple Street, hidden behind overgrown hedges and a rusting gate, was an old Victorian house that had been abandoned for years. Its peeling paint and creaking shutters gave it an eerie aura, especially after dark. The locals often whispered about the house, telling stories of its haunted past, but most dismissed them as mere legend. When the Martin family moved into Cedar Ridge, they were excited to make the old Victorian house their new home. Julia Martin, a single mother of 2, was looking forward to starting fresh. Her children, Sam and Lily, were thrilled about their new home, though the strange tales surrounding the house did make them uneasy. Julia reassured them that it was just old stories and they had nothing to worry about. However, as soon as the Martins settled in, peculiar things began to happen. Sam and Lily would hear faint, cheerful laughter echoing through the house, especially at night. They saw shadows flitting past the windows and occasionally found small, colorful candies scattered around the house. Julia initially thought it was just the kids' imagination, or maybe even a prank from the neighborhood children. One evening, as Julia was unpacking in the attic, she found an old, dusty trunk hidden behind some old furniture. Inside, she discovered an assortment of vintage candy wrappers and a small diary belonging to someone named Eliza, who had lived in the house many years ago. The diary was filled with entries about a candy shop Eliza once owned and her love for making sweets for the neighborhood children. It also mentioned a mysterious candy lady who had a peculiar fondness for sweets and a dark secret that no one knew. As Julia read through the diary, she uncovered more about Eliza's life and the legend of the candy lady. According to the diary, Eliza had been a kind and beloved figure in Cedar Ridge, known for her candy shop that was a local favorite. However, there were dark rumors that she practiced strange rituals and made deals with sinister forces to ensure the success of her business. One entry described a particularly cold and harsh winter when Eliza's candy shop had struggled to stay open. Desperate, Eliza reportedly made a pact with a shadowy figure, vowing to make the best candy in town in exchange for a terrible price. The diary didn't reveal what the price was, but Eliza's tone suggested that the pact had a horrifying consequence. Julia was intrigued and decided to investigate further. She spoke to some of the older residents of Cedar Ridge, who remembered Eliza and her shop. They recounted tales of children disappearing mysteriously after visiting the shop, only to reappear days later with no memory of where they had been. The shop had eventually closed, and Eliza had vanished without a trace. The house had remained abandoned ever since, shrouded in mystery. That night, Julia and her children were awakened by strange noises coming from the attic. When they went to investigate, they found the attic door slightly ajar, despite having locked it earlier. Inside, the old trunk was open, and the diary was missing. In its place were several colorful candies neatly arranged in a row. The eerie laughter they had heard before seemed to echo through the house, making their skin crawl. The following days were filled with an unsettling sense of dread. Sam and Lily continued to find candies around the house, and their once excited attitude towards their new home turned to fear. Julia tried to keep things normal, but the strange occurrences only seemed to escalate. One afternoon, Lily went missing. Julia searched the house frantically, calling out for her daughter. The entire neighborhood joined the search, but there was no sign of Lily. Just as they were about to call the authorities, Lily reappeared, standing in the middle of the street with a bewildered look on her face. She claimed to have been in a candy shop, but her description didn't match any place she had ever been. Julia was horrified when Lily showed her a colorful candy in her pocket that she claimed the shopkeeper had given her. It was the same type of candy she had found in the attic. Desperate for answers, Julia turned back to Eliza's diary. She realized that the diary had mentioned a way to break the pact, but it required a specific ritual performed during a full moon. Determined to protect her children, Julia decided to follow the instructions in the diary. As the full moon approached, she prepared for the ritual, hoping it would put an end to the haunting and ensure the safety of her family. On the night of the full moon, Julia gathered the items mentioned in the diary: a silver locket, a handful of the colorful candies, and a few candles. She set up the ritual space in the attic, where the diary had suggested Eliza had performed similar ceremonies. As Julia began the ritual, she could feel the atmosphere in the house change. The temperature dropped and the air grew thick with an oppressive energy. She followed the steps carefully, lighting the candles and placing the candies in a specific pattern on the floor. She recited the incantations from the diary, her voice trembling with each word. The attic was filled with an eerie silence, broken only by the occasional gust of wind. Julia could sense a presence in the room, the same feeling of being watched that had plagued her since moving in. The shadows seemed to dance and swirl, and the once familiar melody of the Candy Lady's laughter filled the air. As Julia completed the final part of the ritual, the atmosphere shifted abruptly. The oppressive energy lifted, and the temperature in the attic returned to normal. Julia felt a strange sense of relief, but she was unsure if the ritual had truly worked. She hoped that the Candy Lady's spirit would finally be at peace. The following morning, Julia noticed a change in the house. The eerie laughter was gone, and the shadows that once seemed to move on their own were now still. The candies that had appeared around the house were no longer there, and Sam and Lily were no longer plagued by nightmares. Julia decided to investigate further, hoping to uncover more about Eliza's fate. She visited the local historical society and found additional records about the Candy Lady. According to the new information, Eliza's disappearance had been linked to a series of unexplained events in the town, and it was suspected that she had been consumed by the dark forces she had made a pact with. The historical records revealed that Eliza had indeed been trying to protect the children of Cedar Ridge, using the candy as a means to lure them away from danger. However, the pact had twisted her intentions, making her a malevolent force rather than a benevolent guardian. Julia realized that the ritual had not only freed Eliza's spirit, but had also severed the dark connection that had bound her to the house. The Candy Lady's legend was finally put to rest, and the house could now be a place of peace for the Martins. With the Candy Lady's spirit finally at peace, Julia and her family could move forward without fear. The house, once a place of terror, became a warm and welcoming home. Julia felt a renewed sense of hope and happiness, knowing that she had confronted the darkness and emerged victorious. As time went on, the strange occurrences that had plagued the house became distant memories. The children grew up happy and healthy, and the house became a symbol of their resilience. Julia often thought about Eliza and the tragic story of the Candy Lady, but she found solace in knowing that she had helped put an end to the haunting legend. Cedar Ridge moved on from the tales of the Candy Lady, and the once feared house became a cherished part of the town's history. Julia and her family lived peacefully, grateful for their new beginning and the strength they had found in facing their fears. In the town of Maplewood, Texas, rumors of the Candy Lady had circulated for decades. People spoke of a sinister figure who lured children with candies and vanished them into thin air. The legend was often dismissed as a ghost story, but for those who had experienced it firsthand, it was a chilling reality. Evelyn Thompson, a local historian, was determined to uncover the truth behind the Candy Lady. She had inherited a collection of old diaries from her grandmother, who had been a prominent figure in Maplewood's history. Among the diaries was one belonging to a woman named Margaret, who had lived in the town during the early 1900s. Evelyn began reading through Margaret's diary, fascinated by the details of the Candy Lady legend. Margaret's entries described strange occurrences and a growing sense of fear among the town's children. She mentioned a series of disappearances that had occurred around the time of the Candy Lady's visits. The diary hinted at a dark secret, but the entries were fragmented and unclear. Determined to find more information, Evelyn decided to dig deeper. She reached out to local historians and spoke to the older residents of Maplewood, hoping to find additional clues about the Candy Lady and the mysterious disappearances. Her investigation led her to a forgotten part of the town's history, where she uncovered a series of old newspapers reporting on the Candy Lady's activities and the impact they had on the community. As Evelyn pieced together the information, she discovered a pattern to the Candy Lady's appearances. The disappearances of children seemed to follow a specific cycle, occurring every few years. Each time a child would go missing, only to reappear days later with no memory of their time away. The incidents were often dismissed as runaways or pranks, but the recurring nature of the disappearances suggested something more sinister. Evelyn found a photograph in one of the old newspapers that showed a group of children standing in front of a candy shop. The shop's owner, a woman with a kind smile, was identified as Eliza. The photograph was dated around the time of the first reported disappearances. Evelyn was struck by the resemblance between Eliza and the woman described in Margaret's diary. One night, as Evelyn was reviewing her notes, she heard a soft, unsettling sound coming from her attic. She cautiously climbed the stairs, her flashlight illuminating the dark space. To her shock, she found a small collection of colorful candies scattered on the attic floor, along with a note written in a shaky hand. The note read, "Help us. She's still here." Evelyn's heart raced as she realized that the Candy Lady's legend was not just a story. It was a real and ongoing mystery. Determined to uncover the truth, she continued her research, delving into the history of the candy shop and its owner. What she discovered would change her understanding of the Candy Lady forever. Evelyn's investigation led her to the old candy shop, which had long been abandoned. The building was in disrepair, its once vibrant colors faded, and its windows boarded up. Evelyn carefully pried open one of the boards and stepped inside, the air thick with dust and the scent of decay. As she explored the shop, she found remnants of Eliza's candy-making days, broken jars, empty shelves, and faded posters. In the back of the shop, she discovered a hidden door that led to a narrow staircase descending into the basement. Evelyn's curiosity and determination drove her to explore further. The basement was dark and musty, with cobwebs clinging to the corners. Evelyn used her flashlight to navigate the cluttered space, her heart pounding with each step. At the end of the basement, she found a concealed door hidden behind a stack of old crates. With a sense of trepidation, she opened the door and descended into a small, dimly lit chamber. Inside the chamber, Evelyn found a collection of strange artifacts, candies wrapped in old, ornate paper, and faded photographs of children. The walls were lined with symbols and drawings that seemed to depict ritualistic scenes. In the center of the room stood an old, ornate mirror with a tarnished frame. As Evelyn examined the mirror, she felt a sudden chill and heard a faint, haunting whisper. The reflection in the mirror shifted, showing not only her own image but also the ghostly figures of children. They seemed to be reaching out, their expressions filled with fear and longing. Determined to confront the Candy Lady, Evelyn returned to her research and discovered that Eliza had been involved in a series of occult practices. The rituals were believed to be intended to trap the souls of the children she lured with her candy. The pact she had made had bound her spirit to the candy shop, forcing her to continue her malevolent work. Evelyn reached out to a local paranormal investigator, hoping to gain insight into the Candy Lady's activities and find a way to break the curse. The investigator, a woman named Claire, agreed to help and set up equipment in the old candy shop. As night fell, Claire and Evelyn prepared for the investigation. The atmosphere in the shop was heavy with an eerie energy, and the temperature dropped significantly. Claire set up her equipment and began the investigation using a combination of tools to detect paranormal activity. The haunting whispers grew louder, and the atmosphere became charged with tension. The mirror in the hidden chamber began to shimmer, and the ghostly figures of children appeared once more. Claire attempted to communicate with the spirits, seeking answers and a way to free them from the Candy Lady's grasp. The Candy Lady's presence became more pronounced, and her spectral form appeared in the mirror. Her face twisted in a grotesque smile. Evelyn and Claire could feel the dark energy emanating from her, and they realized that the spirit was trying to maintain its control over the children. Claire performed a ritual to break the pact and release the trapped souls. She used a combination of protective symbols, incantations, and ceremonial tools to counteract the dark forces that had bound the Candy Lady to the shop. Evelyn watched with a mix of fear and hope, knowing that their success would mean the end of the Candy Lady's reign of terror. As the ritual progressed, the Candy Lady's form became more agitated. The mirror cracked, and the room was filled with a blinding light. The ghostly figures of the children began to fade, their expressions changing from fear to relief. The temperature in the shop returned to normal, and the oppressive energy lifted. With the ritual complete, the Candy Lady's spirit was finally released from her torment. The mirror shattered into pieces, and the hidden chamber was filled with a sense of peace and closure. Evelyn and Claire stood in silence, the weight of the investigation settling over them. The old candy shop was left as a monument to the Candy Lady's dark legacy, a reminder of the price of her pact and the bravery of those who had confronted her. Evelyn felt a sense of accomplishment, knowing that she had helped bring closure to a long-standing mystery. In the aftermath of the investigation, Maplewood began to heal from the scars left by the Candy Lady's legend. The town's children no longer lived in fear, and the story of the Candy Lady became a cautionary tale rather than a source of terror. Evelyn continued her work as a historian, using her experiences to educate others about the darker aspects of local legends and the importance of confronting them. The old candy shop was preserved as a historical site, and the artifacts discovered during the investigation were displayed in a local museum. The story of the Candy Lady remained a significant part of Maplewood's history, a testament to the courage of those who faced the darkness and emerged victorious. Evelyn's legacy was one of bravery and determination, and her work ensured that the Candy Lady's reign of terror would never be forgotten. In the town of Fairview, Texas, there was an old playground that had long been abandoned. The rusty swings and faded slides stood as a haunting reminder of a time when the playground was bustling with laughter and joy. Local children would dare each other to visit the playground after dark, spurred on by tales of the Candy Lady and her curse. One evening, a group of teenagers decided to spend the night at the playground, daring each other to confront the legend of the Candy Lady. Among them was Jake, a skeptic who dismissed the stories as mere superstition. He was determined to prove that there was nothing to fear, and that the Candy Lady was just a myth. As the sun set and darkness enveloped the playground, the group set up camp on the swings, their laughter and conversation filling the air. Jake was confident that they would make it through the night without incident. But as the hours passed, the atmosphere began to change. The once vibrant playground grew eerily quiet, and the temperature dropped noticeably. The teenagers' laughter faded as they began to feel a sense of unease. Shadows seemed to move on their own, and strange, haunting melodies floated through the air. Jake tried to brush off the feeling of dread, but it grew harder to ignore. Suddenly, one of the teenagers, Lisa, screamed and pointed to the far end of the playground. A figure, shrouded in darkness, stood near the old merry-go-round. The figure held a basket filled with colorful candies, its face obscured by the shadows. The group was frozen with fear, unable to move or speak. The figure slowly moved towards the group, the basket of candies swinging gently from its hand. The teenagers were paralyzed with fear as the figure approached, its form becoming more distinct in the dim light. It was a woman dressed in old-fashioned clothing, her face hidden by a wide-brimmed hat. As the figure drew closer, the teenagers could see the basket filled with an assortment of candies, each wrapped in brightly colored paper. The woman's presence was accompanied by a soft, eerie laughter that seemed to echo through the playground. Without warning, the figure suddenly vanished, leaving behind the basket of candies and an overwhelming sense of dread. The teenagers quickly gathered their belongings and fled the playground, their hearts racing with terror. Jake was determined to prove that the encounter had been a hallucination or a trick, but the fear in the other's eyes was unmistakable. The following day, the local news reported that one of the teenagers had gone missing, sparking a widespread search. Jake and the others were questioned by the authorities, but their accounts of the Candy Lady were dismissed as unreliable. The missing teenager Lisa was never found, and the playground was once again abandoned. The disappearance of Lisa and the rumors surrounding the Candy Lady prompted a local journalist named Emily to investigate the legend further. Emily had heard the stories of the Candy Lady and her curse, but had always dismissed them as local folklore. The recent events, however, had piqued her interest. Emily began her investigation by interviewing the teenagers who had encountered the Candy Lady. Their accounts were inconsistent, but they all described a similar figure and a feeling of overwhelming fear. Emily visited the abandoned playground and spoke to locals who had lived in Fairview for decades. One elderly resident, Mrs. Thompson, shared her memories of the Candy Lady. According to Mrs. Thompson, the Candy Lady had once been a beloved figure in Fairview, known for her kindness and generosity. However, something had changed, and she had become a malevolent force, luring children with her candies and disappearing with them. Emily's research led her to old archives and historical records, where she discovered that the Candy Lady, whose real name was Clara, had once operated a candy shop in Fairview. The shop had closed abruptly, and Clara had vanished without a trace. The rumors of her curse and the disappearances of children began around the same time. Determined to uncover the truth, Emily decided to spend the night at the abandoned playground, hoping to encounter the Candy Lady and learn more about her curse. She set up cameras and recording equipment, prepared to document any unusual activity. As night fell, Emily settled into a makeshift camp near the swings, her heart pounding with anticipation. The playground was eerily quiet, and the shadows seemed to dance in the moonlight. Emily's nerves were on edge, and she constantly checked her equipment for any signs of interference. Around midnight, Emily heard a faint melodic tune drifting through the air. The sound was haunting and familiar, like a lullaby from childhood. She followed the melody to the center of the playground, where she saw the candy lady standing by the merry-go-round. Clara's figure was illuminated by the moonlight, her face hidden by the brim of her hat. She held the basket of candies, her gaze fixed on Emily with an unsettling intensity. Emily tried to remain calm as she approached the figure, determined to get answers. Suddenly, Clara's form began to distort, and the playground was filled with a blinding light. Emily shielded her eyes and felt a powerful force pulling her towards the candy lady. The ground seemed to shift beneath her feet, and she was overcome with a sense of helplessness. When the light faded, Emily found herself in a strange, otherworldly realm. The landscape was distorted, with twisted trees and eerie shadows stretching in every direction. The candy lady stood before her, her form now clearer and more menacing. Clara revealed that she had been cursed by a rival candy maker who had envied her success. The curse had bound her spirit to the playground, forcing her to lure children with her candies and trap them in the otherworldly realm. Clara's pleas for freedom were tinged with desperation and sorrow. Emily realized that the candy lady's curse was not just a legend, but a tragic reality. She vowed to help Clara find peace and break the curse. With Clara's guidance, Emily began to search for a way to reverse the spell and free the trapped souls. Emily's quest to break the curse led her to a hidden chamber beneath the playground. The chamber was filled with arcane symbols and ritualistic artifacts. With Clara's help, Emily performed a ritual to counteract the curse and release the trapped souls. The process was intense and demanding, with the energy in the chamber fluctuating wildly. Emily's determination and courage were tested as she faced the dark forces that had bound Clara to the playground. The ritual culminated in a powerful burst of light, shattering the curse and freeing the trapped souls. The playground returned to its normal state, and the once ominous atmosphere was replaced by a sense of calm. Clara's spirit was finally at rest, and the curse was lifted from the playground. Emily emerged from the experience with a renewed sense of purpose and a deep understanding of the legend she had once dismissed. The story of the Candy Lady became a testament to the power of courage and determination in the face of darkness. Fairview's playground was no longer a place of fear, but a symbol of hope and redemption. Emily's legacy was one of bravery and compassion, and her work ensured that the Candy Lady's curse would never be forgotten. Clara in the small town of Chesterton, Texas. The legend of the Candy Lady had been a source of whispered fears and eerie tales for generations. Local children grew up hearing about the mysterious woman who lured them with sweets, only for them to vanish without a trace. The tale was dismissed by many as a simple ghost story, but for those who experienced it firsthand, it was a chilling reality. One autumn evening, a newcomer named Tom arrived in Chesterton. He had heard the stories about the Candy Lady and was intrigued by the legend. As a journalist with a knack for uncovering the truth behind local myths, Tom decided to investigate the legend himself. His arrival in town was met with curiosity and skepticism, as the townsfolk were wary of outsiders prying into their dark history. Tom rented a small cottage on the outskirts of town, close to the old abandoned candy shop where the Candy Lady was said to have lived. He began his research by speaking with the townspeople and gathering any information he could find about the Candy Lady's history. Many were reluctant to talk, their faces filled with apprehension whenever the subject was broached. One evening, while Tom was reviewing old newspapers and documents in his cottage, he received an unexpected visitor. A woman in her mid-40s, dressed in vintage clothing that seemed out of place for the modern era, knocked on his door. Her eyes were a piercing blue, and her demeanor was both polite and unsettling. She introduced herself as Lydia, and claimed to have information about the Candy Lady. Lydia's presence was mysterious, and her knowledge of the legend was both detailed and unsettling. She handed Tom a worn, leather-bound journal, and asked him to read it carefully, insisting that it held crucial information about the Candy Lady's curse. Tom spent the night poring over Lydia's journal, which was filled with handwritten accounts and detailed observations. The diary belonged to Eliza, the original Candy Lady, and it described her descent into darkness. The entries were filled with tales of desperation, loneliness, and an insidious deal she had made with an otherworldly entity. According to the diary, Eliza had started her candy shop with good intentions, but she had become obsessed with a forbidden recipe that promised eternal success. In her pursuit of this power, she had unwittingly made a pact with a malevolent spirit. The spirit demanded the souls of children in exchange for the success and prosperity that Eliza sought. The diary detailed a series of disturbing rituals that Eliza performed to fulfill the spirit's demands. Each ritual involved luring children with candy and then performing a dark ceremony to capture their souls. The diary's final entries revealed Eliza's growing horror as she realized the true nature of her actions and the inescapable consequences of her pact. Tom was both fascinated and horrified by the contents of the diary. He knew that he had to uncover more about Eliza's final days and the nature of the curse. He set out to visit the old candy shop, hoping to find additional clues that might help him understand the full extent of the candy lady's dark legacy. The old candy shop was a shadow of its former self. The once vibrant storefront was now covered in grime and overgrown with weeds. Tom pushed open the creaky door and stepped inside, the air thick with the scent of mold and decay. The interior of the shop was a time capsule, filled with old candy jars, faded posters, and broken shelves. Tom began his search in the back room, where he hoped to find more evidence related to Eliza's rituals. As he carefully examined the dusty remnants, he discovered a hidden compartment beneath the floorboards. Inside the compartment were several ritualistic objects, including ornate candles, strange symbols drawn on parchment, and an old, weathered book. The book appeared to be a grimoire, containing detailed instructions for performing dark rituals. Tom's heart raced as he realized that he had uncovered a key piece of evidence that might hold the answers he sought. As Tom continued his exploration, he heard a faint ghostly whisper coming from the darkness. The air grew cold, and a sense of malevolent presence filled the room. He felt a chill run down his spine and turned to see a shadowy figure standing in the doorway. The figure was indistinct, but its presence was unmistakably threatening. Determined to confront the source of the haunting, Tom bravely approached the shadowy figure. The figure began to take shape, revealing itself to be the ghostly apparition of Eliza, the candy lady. Her eyes were hollow, and her expression was one of deep sorrow and regret. Eliza's ghostly form seemed to radiate a sense of despair. She spoke in a voice that was both ethereal and mournful, recounting her tragic tale and the nature of her curse. She explained that the pact she had made had doomed her to an eternity of suffering, trapped between the mortal world and the spirit realm. Eliza revealed that the only way to break the curse was to perform a counter-ritual, using the objects found in the hidden compartment. The ritual required specific incantations and symbols, and it had to be performed at the stroke of midnight during a full moon. Eliza's spirit implored Tom to help her, promising that her release would bring peace to the town and end the candy lady's reign of terror. Tom agreed to help Eliza, knowing that it was his only chance to uncover the truth and put an end to the curse. He prepared for the ritual by studying the grimoire and gathering the necessary ingredients. As midnight approached, he made his way back to the candy shop, determined to see the ritual through to the end. The night of the ritual was filled with anticipation and dread. Tom set up the ritualistic objects in the center of the old candy shop, carefully arranging the candles and drawing the symbols on the floor. The air was thick with tension, and the atmosphere grew increasingly oppressive as the hour of midnight approached. As Tom began the ritual, he recited the incantations from the grimoire, his voice echoing through the empty shop. The temperature in the room dropped dramatically, and the shadows seemed to come alive. Eliza's ghostly form appeared once more, hovering above the ritual circle. The ritual reached its climax as Tom completed the final incantation. A blinding light filled the room, and the air crackled with energy. The shadows recoiled, and the oppressive atmosphere lifted. Eliza's spirit began to dissolve, her form becoming more ethereal and less defined. With a final wistful smile, Eliza's spirit vanished, leaving behind a sense of peace and tranquility. The old candy shop was bathed in a warm, gentle light, and the malevolent presence that had haunted it was finally gone. Tom felt a sense of accomplishment and relief, knowing that he had helped free Eliza from her torment. In the aftermath of the ritual, the town of Chesterton began to recover from the effects of the candy lady's curse. The abandoned candy shop was restored and transformed into a museum, preserving the history of the Candy Lady and the legend that had once terrorized the town. Tom's investigation and the ritual he performed became the stuff of local legend. He was hailed as a hero and celebrated for his bravery and determination in uncovering the truth behind the Candy Lady's curse. His work served as a reminder of the power of facing one's fears and the importance of confronting dark legends with courage. As Tom left Chesterton, he reflected on his experiences and the impact they had on the town. The story of the Candy Lady had been a dark chapter in Chesterton's history, but it had also been a testament to the strength of the human spirit and the possibility of redemption. Tom's journey had not only uncovered the truth behind the Candy Lady's legend, but it also brought peace to a community haunted by its past. The legacy of the Candy Lady lived on as a cautionary tale, reminding future generations of the importance of facing the darkness and seeking the light. In the quiet town of Hillcrest, Texas, the legend of the Candy Lady was a source of both fascination and fear. The tale of the mysterious woman who lured children with sweets and then vanished with them had been passed down through generations. Despite the passage of time, the legend remained a powerful and unsettling part of the town's history. The story was particularly poignant for Sarah, a local historian who had spent years researching the Candy Lady's legend. Sarah was determined to uncover the truth behind the tales and put an end to the lingering fears that had plagued Hillcrest for so long. One evening, Sarah received a mysterious package at her office. Inside was an old, ornate box sealed with a wax emblem. The box contained a collection of letters and photographs related to the Candy Lady. Among the items was a letter addressed to Sarah, written in a trembling hand. The letter was from a woman named Margaret, who claimed to have been a witness to the Candy Lady's final moments. Margaret's letter described a series of strange occurrences leading up to the Candy Lady's disappearance, and hinted at a final confrontation between the Candy Lady and a group of townsfolk determined to end her reign of terror. Sarah knew that the letter could hold crucial information and decided to investigate further. Sarah tracked down Margaret, who was now an elderly woman living in a retirement home. Margaret was hesitant to revisit the past but agreed to share her story with Sarah. As they sat in the quiet room, Margaret's eyes filled with tears as she recounted her experiences. Margaret had been a young girl when the Candy Lady's terror reached its peak. Her family lived near the abandoned candy shop, and Margaret often heard unsettling stories about the woman who lured children with her sweets. The stories took on a new level of horror when Margaret's younger brother disappeared one fateful night. Margaret described the fear that gripped the town as more children vanished. Desperate to find answers, a group of local residents, including Margaret's family, formed a search party to find the missing children and confront the Candy Lady. They scoured the woods and the old candy shop, following any lead they could find. One night, search party discovered a hidden passageway beneath the candy shop. The passage led to a series of underground tunnels and chambers. The group followed the passage, hoping it would lead them to the Candy Lady and the missing children. The underground tunnels were dark and foreboding, filled with the echoes of footsteps and the distant sound of dripping water. The search party pressed on, guided only by the faint light of their lanterns and the hope of finding the missing children. As they ventured deeper into the tunnels, they came across a chamber adorned with strange symbols and ritualistic objects. In the center of the chamber was a large, ornate mirror covered in dust. The mirror seemed to emanate an eerie, otherworldly glow. Margaret and the others felt a chill as they approached the mirror. Suddenly, the Candy Lady appeared in the reflection, her face twisted with anger and despair. The Candy Lady's form seemed to flicker and distort, as if she were trapped between the worlds of the living and the dead. The confrontation was intense and frightening. The Candy Lady's voice echoed through the chamber, taunting the search party and revealing her malevolent intentions. The group attempted to confront her, but their efforts were in vain as she seemed to slip through their grasp, her form becoming more insubstantial with each passing moment. Realizing that their efforts to confront the Candy Lady directly were futile, Margaret and the search party decided to use a different approach. They remembered the legends of a powerful artifact that could banish malevolent spirits, the Crystal of Purity. The artifact was said to have been hidden away in a secret location, waiting for someone to use it to end the Candy Lady's reign of terror. Margaret's family had once been caretakers of the crystal, and they knew its location. The search party raced against time to retrieve the artifact. knowing that the Candy Lady's power was growing stronger by the minute. As they returned to the chamber with the crystal of purity, they performed a ritual to channel its power and confront the Candy Lady. The chamber was filled with a blinding light as the crystal's energy was unleashed, creating a barrier between the Candy Lady and the living world. The Candy Lady's form writhed and twisted, her screams echoing through the chamber as the light intensified. With a final, anguished cry, she was pulled into the mirror, her malevolent presence trapped forever in the otherworldly reflection. With the Candy Lady's defeat, the town of Hillcrest began to recover from the fear and trauma that had plagued it for years. The missing children were found safe and sound, and the Candy Lady's curse was lifted. The abandoned candy shop was sealed, and the underground tunnels were sealed off to prevent any further disturbances. Margaret and the search party were hailed as heroes, their bravery and sacrifice remembered for generations to come. The story of the Candy Lady became a symbol of courage and resilience, a testament to the power of facing one's fears and confronting the darkness. Sarah's research and Margaret's testimony provided a new perspective on the Candy Lady's legend. The truth behind the tale was revealed, and the once terrifying story became a reminder of the strength of the human spirit. As Sarah concluded her investigation, she reflected on the impact of the Candy Lady's legend on Hillcrest. The town had faced its fears and emerged stronger, and the story of the Candy Lady became a part of its history, a cautionary tale of the dangers of dealing with malevolent forces. Sarah's work ensured that the Candy Lady's story would be remembered, not just as a terrifying legend, but as a lesson in bravery, sacrifice, and the power of confronting darkness. The town of Hillcrest was no longer haunted by the Candy Lady's curse, and the legend served as a reminder of the importance of facing one's fears with courage and determination. The small town of Fairview had always been quiet and peaceful, until the day the legend of the Candy Lady returned. The tale of the Candy Lady, a mysterious figure who lured children with candy and vanished with them, had been a source of fear for generations. But after years of silence, the legend resurfaced with a vengeance. It all began when a group of teenagers discovered an old, forgotten candy shop on the outskirts of town. The shop, long abandoned and overgrown with vines, seemed to be the perfect place for a thrill-seeking adventure. The teenagers, eager to prove their bravery, decided to explore the shop and uncover its secrets. As they entered the shop, they found old candy jars and faded posters that seemed to tell the story of the Candy Lady. The atmosphere was eerie and unsettling, but the teenagers were determined to explore every corner of the shop. Little did they know that their curiosity would awaken a malevolent force that had been lying dormant for years. The teenagers spent hours exploring the candy shop, taking pictures and documenting their findings. As the evening wore on, they decided to leave, but one of the teenagers, Jessica, realized that she had lost her phone. She retraced her steps, searching the dark corners of the shop for her missing device. Jessica's friends grew worried as she failed to return. They called out for her and searched the shop, but there was no sign of Jessica. Panic set in as they realized that she had disappeared without a trace. The remaining teenagers called the police and reported Jessica missing, but their search efforts yielded no results. The town of Fairview was thrown into a state of alarm as news of Jessica's disappearance spread. The legend of the Candy Lady resurfaced, and the townsfolk began to fear that the curse had returned. Parents warned their children to stay away from the abandoned candy shop, and the atmosphere in Fairview grew tense and fearful. Detective Ryan, a seasoned investigator with a reputation for solving difficult cases, was assigned to the investigation. He was skeptical of the legend of the Candy Lady, but took the case seriously. Detective Ryan began by interviewing the teenagers who had been with Jessica and searching for any clues that might explain her disappearance. During his investigation, Detective Ryan discovered that the abandoned candy shop had a dark history. The shop's owner, Eliza, had been known as the Candy Lady, and her disappearance had been shrouded in mystery. The town's records revealed that Eliza had vanished after a series of disturbing incidents involving children disappearing from the area. Detective Ryan's investigation led him to the old candy shop, where he found evidence of recent activity. The shop's interior showed signs of recent use, and there were remnants of candy scattered on the floor. It was clear that someone or something had been using the shop as a hideout. As Detective Ryan delved deeper into the case, he began to experience strange occurrences. He would hear whispers and see shadows moving out of the corner of his eye. The abandoned candy shop seemed to come alive with an eerie presence, and Detective Ryan felt a growing sense of unease. One night, while investigating the shop alone, Detective Ryan encountered a ghostly figure. The figure was that of a woman with hollow eyes and a haunting presence. The apparition spoke in a mournful voice, revealing itself to be the spirit of Eliza, the candy lady. Eliza's ghostly form revealed that she had been cursed by a malevolent force and was doomed to wander the candy shop, luring children with sweets and trapping their souls. The curse had made her a prisoner in the shop, and she was unable to find peace until her curse was lifted. Determined to put an end to the candy lady's terror, Detective Ryan sought the help of a local historian who had studied the legend extensively. The historian revealed that the only way to break the curse was to perform a ritual at the stroke of midnight, using a special artifact known as the Amulet of Redemption. The Amulet of Redemption was said to possess the power to banish malevolent spirits and lift curses. Detective Ryan and the historian set out to retrieve the amulet, knowing that time was running out. As they prepared for the ritual, they were faced with increasing resistance from the candy lady's spirit, whose power seemed to grow stronger with each passing hour. At midnight, Detective Ryan and the historian performed the ritual in the heart of the candy shop. The room was filled with a blinding light as the Amulet of Redemption was activated. The candy lady's ghostly form writhed and twisted, and the air crackled with energy. With a final burst of light, the candy lady's spirit was expelled from the candy shop and the curse was lifted. The once ominous atmosphere of the shop was replaced by a sense of calm and peace. Detective Ryan and the historian emerged from the experience with a renewed sense of accomplishment and a deep understanding of the power of confronting darkness. In the aftermath of the candy lady's defeat, the town of Fairview began to heal from the trauma that had haunted it for years. Jessica was found safe and sound, and the abandoned candy shop was sealed off to prevent any further disturbances. Detective Ryan was hailed as a hero for his bravery and dedication in solving the case. The legend of the candy lady became a cautionary tale for future generations, a reminder of the importance of facing one's fears and confronting the darkness that lurks in the shadows. The story of the candy lady's final vengeance served as a testament to the power of courage and determination in the face of evil. Fairview's residents could finally put the legend to rest, knowing that they had overcome the malevolent force that had once terrorized their town.